During their divorce proceedings, her husband declared, "Return everything I've ever gifted you and the children." A week later, a massive crate sat on his doorstep. Upon opening it, he was rendered speechless. Before we delve deeper, please share which country you're viewing this from. Enjoy the story. Natalia observed Oleg across the courtroom table, feeling as though she was seeing him for the very first time. 12 years of marriage, 2 children, and now this bitter conclusion. He appeared content, even triumphant, and his smug expression inflicted nearly as much pain as his betrayals and the countless humiliations she endured for the sake of her children and the preservation of a family that, as it turned out, only she truly valued. Oleg was leaving. He was leaving for Marina, young, vibrant, self-assured, the woman he believed understood him better than Natalia, who had devoted herself to their home and children. He showed no concern for Kirill and Lara, as if they were not his own flesh and blood, his continuation. Alimony? Yes, he would certainly pay, but without any sentimentality and, naturally, the absolute minimum amount. The sole priority was ensuring Marina had everything she needed. The judge pronounced the divorce decree. Natalia heard the words as if from a great distance, as if they concerned someone else entirely. It was over. 12 years of life, hopes, dreams, all crumbled to dust like a dilapidated house of cards. But the truly remarkable part unfolded after the session. Oleg, evidently prompted by Marina, uttered something that caused even Natalia's seasoned lawyer, Svetlana Artemovna, to frown. "I want all the gifts back," Oleg announced, his gaze challenging Natalia. "Everything I've given you over the years, and to the children, too." Natalia was taken aback. She had anticipated many things, but never this. Returning gifts. It was so petty, so demeaning, it stole her breath. "Are you serious?" she asked, striving for composure. "Absolutely," Oleg replied, a self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips. "Every last trinket. I spent a considerable amount on you and your offspring, and I want it all back." Marina stood beside him, a predatory smile gracing her face. She was clearly the instigator of this absurd demand, eager to see Natalia feel destitute and humiliated, to make her understand what she had lost. Svetlana Artemovna attempted to interject, but Oleg remained unyielding. He insisted on his demand, and the judge, with a grimace, entered it into the record. Natalia remained silent. She looked at Oleg and Marina, feeling not anger, but a strange indifference. They seemed so pathetic, so petty in their avarice, that she couldn't even muster the energy to be angry. "Very well," she finally said, her voice calm and firm. "I will return all your gifts, every single one." Oleg's face bloomed into a pleased smile. He had clearly expected a scene. Hysterics? Please. But Natalia wasn't about to grant him that satisfaction. "However," she added, "I have one condition. Everything must be officially documented, with an inventory and a transfer deed, so there are no further disputes." Oleg shrugged. He didn't care. The important thing was to get his possessions back. "As you wish," he replied. "Svetlana Artemovna, please handle this." Svetlana Artemovna glanced at Natalia with concern. She didn't understand her client's plan, but sensed a hidden strategy behind this quiet agreement. Stepping out of the courthouse, Natalia took a deep breath. A challenging task lay ahead. She needed to gather all of Oleg's gifts, compile an inventory, and arrange the handover. But she was resolute. She would do it, and she would do it with flair. "Svetlana Artemovna," she said, sliding into the car, "I need your assistance." "Of course, Natasha," the lawyer replied. "What are you planning?" Natalia smiled. "I want to teach Oleg a lesson," she said. "A lesson he will never forget. But to do that, everything must be done perfectly, without a single flaw." Svetlana Artemovna nodded. She knew Natalia was a strong and intelligent woman, and if she set her mind to something, she would see it through. The following week, Natalia dedicated herself to collecting the gifts. She scoured every cupboard, drawer, and box, retrieving photographs, trinkets, cards, children's drawings, and anything Oleg had ever given her from forgotten corners. Each item evoked mixed emotions. On one hand, memories of happy moments, love, and hope. On the other, bitterness, disappointment, hurt, and pain. She found an old photograph of herself and Oleg, young and happy, standing by the sea. He was holding her, kissing her cheek, and love shone in his eyes. Natalia wept. Could it all have been a lie? Had he never loved her? She discovered children's drawings. Kirill and Lara had depicted tanks, airplanes, and ships. Oleg had proudly displayed these drawings in his study, boasting to colleagues about his talented children. She unearthed a card Oleg had sent her for her birthday, filled with declarations of his profound love, stating she was the meaning of his life and he would never leave her. As she gathered these gifts, Natalia felt a surge of anger growing within her. Anger at Oleg, at Marina, and at herself for allowing them to treat her this way. But alongside the anger, her resolve solidified. A determination to prove she wasn't a pushover, not a victim, but a strong, independent woman capable of standing up for herself, and most importantly, for her children. Svetlana Artemovna helped her compile the inventory. The list was extensive, encompassing everything from expensive jewelry to cheap Chinese souvenirs. Natalia insisted on including items Oleg had given their children, wanting him to grasp the sheer absurdity of his request. Once the inventory was complete, Svetlana Artemovna contacted Oleg, informing him that Natalia was ready to return the gifts. Oleg was delighted, already envisioning how he would boast to Marina about his triumph. Natalia requested that Svetlana Artemovna arrange the handover at a neutral location, as she did not want Oleg in her home. The week passed in a strange daze. Natalia went through her daily routines, trying not to dwell on the impending handover. A mixture of relief and sorrow brewed within her. On one hand, she felt liberated from the burden of the past, from constant reproaches and a sense of inadequacy. On the other, it was painful to acknowledge that the person to whom she had devoted so many years was so readily willing to erase their shared history. On the appointed day, a delivery van pulled up to the building. A driver and a mover, grunting with effort, unloaded a massive cardboard box, bound with thick rope, onto the sidewalk. Oleg, standing on the balcony of his new apartment, shared with Marina, watched the scene unfold with a crooked smirk. He felt he had won, forcing Natalia to concede his point. He had no idea what awaited him inside. "Here you go, sir," the driver said, offering Oleg a weigh bill for his signature. "It's a heavy box, probably around 30 kilograms. Be careful with it." Oleg signed dismissively, shoving the paper back to the driver. He was already anticipating Marina's reaction when she saw all these treasures he had reclaimed from his ex-wife. It would be another testament to his strength and success. After the movers departed, Oleg attempted to haul the box into the apartment alone, but quickly realized it was an impossible task for one person. He had to call Marina, who was at that moment painting her nails a vibrant shade of red. "Marinochka, darling, could you help me, please?" he cooed into the phone. Something interesting arrived, very heavy. Marina frowned with displeasure. She had no desire to smudge her freshly painted nails, but the prospect of seeing the valuables Natalia possessed outweighed her reluctance. Together, they struggled to drag the box into the living room. Oleg, panting, collapsed onto the sofa. Marina, arms crossed, surveyed the box with disdain. "What is all this junk?" she scoffed. "Probably old rags and trinkets. Why did you even want this?" "Just wait, you'll see," Oleg replied, intrigued, reaching for a knife to cut the rope. He ripped off the lid and froze. Alongside jewelry, expensive watches, and clothing, his eyes fell upon photographs, hundreds of them, neatly stacked in piles, each tied with a ribbon. Oleg pulled out a stack and untied the ribbon. Smiling faces gazed back at him. His own, Natalia's, little Kiryusha's, and Lara's. There they were at the beach, tanned and happy. There they were at the amusement park, laughing and hugging. There they were at home, by the Christmas tree, unwrapping gifts. On the back of each photograph, a caption was inscribed in Natalia's neat calligraphic hand, detailing dates, locations, and brief comments. "Our first vacation together. I'm so happy." "Kiryusha is 3 here. He adores cotton candy." The best New Year's ever. Oleg felt a lump rise in his throat. He set the photographs aside and pulled out the next stack. Children's drawings. Crooked houses, awkward stick figures, colorful suns. Each drawing was signed with a child's hand. "I love Papa. Papa is the strongest. Papa is the best. Marina, standing beside him, watched Oleg with growing irritation. "What is all this?" she finally exclaimed. "Sentimental drivel. Why did you even bring this out? I thought there would be diamonds or something." Oleg offered no response. He continued to pull more gifts from the box. Here was a stack of old postcards, signed by him in the early days of their acquaintance, filled with romantic verses, declarations of love, and promises of eternal fidelity. Here was a pile of Kirill and Lara's school notebooks, with notes of gratitude for help with their studies. "Thank you, Mommy, for helping me with math. I got an A. Thank you, Daddy, for explaining how to solve the problem." The deeper Oleg delved into the box's contents, the greater his bewilderment became. He'd expected to find only material possessions he could sell or give to Marina. Instead, he found their life, their shared life, with all its joys and sorrows, successes and failures, love and care. At the very bottom of the box lay a large folder. Oleg opened it and saw receipts. Hundreds of receipts from stores selling children's clothing, shoes, toys, and books for educational centers. Each receipt was neatly filed and annotated. Kiryusha's winter coat, Lara's new boots, payment for English lessons, gifts for friends' birthdays. Oleg began adding up the amounts. After a few minutes, he realized that the total sum Natalia had spent on the children in the last few years far exceeded the value of all his gifts combined. And then he saw it. A small piece of paper attached to the last receipt. It contained only a few lines, but they pierced his consciousness like a dagger. "I have returned everything you wish to reclaim," Natalia had written. All the photographs, drawings, cards, notebooks, receipts, jewelry, electronics, all the material possessions. But what you never gave, love, care, support, attention, I have kept for myself and the children. This is something you can never take away from us." Oleg's hand trembled as he dropped the paper. He felt the world around him begin to crumble. He stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by mountains of returned memories, and for the first time in a long while, he understood what he had truly lost. He had lost not money and possessions, but his family, his love, himself. Marina, still standing by the door, looked at Oleg with contempt. "So, what are you going to do with all this rubbish now?" she asked. "Throw it in the trash or sit here and cry over old photos?" Oleg didn't reply. He simply stared at the box, filled with the remnants of his past life, and understood that he had made a colossal mistake. He had traded genuine values for superficial glitter, sincere love for false admiration, and now he had only himself to blame for his selfishness and foolishness. Marina, receiving no answer, turned and went into the bedroom. She understood that Oleg was not in a state to entertain her or shower her with compliments. She found it boring and unpleasant to be around a man who had suddenly transformed from a confident victor into a pathetic failure. Oleg was left alone with his memories. He sat on the sofa for a long time, sifting through photographs and drawings, reading old letters and cards. He tried to comprehend how he could have been so blind and deaf, how he could have failed to appreciate what he had. For the first time in a long while, he felt pangs of remorse. He remembered how Natalia had cared for him, supported him through difficult times, and loved him. Despite all his flaws, he recalled how he had betrayed her, lied to her, and humiliated her, and he felt ashamed, deeply ashamed. But it was too late. He had destroyed his own marriage, alienated his children, and chosen the path of selfishness and betrayal. Now he could only bear the consequences of his mistakes. His gaze fell upon a child's drawing depicting him, Natalia, Kirill, and Lara holding hands. The lopsided figures were colored with bright, naive hues. In the corner, a clumsy hand had written, "We are a family." He remembered this drawing. Lara had given it to him for his birthday several years ago. He recalled praising her then, kissing the top of her head, and then returning to his own affairs, to endless negotiations and deals. He had always had little time for his children. He believed that the most important thing was to provide them with a comfortable future, and the rest were trifles. Trifles. Now, these trifles stared up at him from the floor, chiding him for his blindness. Marina returned to the room. "You know, Oleg, I don't understand why you got involved with all this in the first place. Why do you need all these sentimental tears? I thought you were different." It was as if he had been struck in the gut. "Different," he croaked. "And what kind of man did you want me to be?" "Successful, strong, confident," she said, waving her hand dismissively towards the box. "Not this. I have to go. I have a meeting." The door slammed shut, leaving Oleg in silence, broken only by the quiet ticking of an expensive Swiss watch, a watch he had bought himself as a symbol of another victory. But now, it seemed to him merely a useless piece of metal. He dropped to his knees, picked up a photograph from the floor of himself and Natalia laughing, embracing. It was their first wedding anniversary. They were so young, so happy, full of hopes and plans for the future. He remembered her laughter, bright and genuine. He hadn't heard it in so long. He had silenced it himself, smothering her with expensive gifts, believing that was enough. He thought he could buy his way out of it, of her, of the children, of his conscience. But as it turned out, love could not be bought, trust could not be bought, and family could not be bought. He reread Natalia's note, found at the bottom of the box. Every word struck his heart like a knife. "I returned everything to you, and what you never gave, I kept for myself and the children." What had he not given? Warmth, care, attention, support. He had been too preoccupied with himself, his career, his ambitions. He had believed that money was paramount, but now he understood that money was just paper, while true values were those that could not be touched but could be felt. He looked at Natalia's expenditure breakdown for the children. The sums were impressive. He had always considered himself the provider, the main earner, but he had never considered how much time and effort Natalia dedicated to them. He had never seen her sitting up at night helping them with homework, taking them to clubs and sports, nursing them when they were ill. He had considered it her duty. He remembered Kirill approaching him a few months ago, asking for a new computer. He had brushed him off, saying he didn't have time, that he was busy. Natalia had then bought the computer, using her own money, savings for a new fur coat. He realized that Natalia had always been more than just a wife. She was a mother, a friend, the bedrock of their family. And he was merely a sponsor. For the first time in a long time, he felt not pride, but shame. Shame for his greed, his selfishness, his blindness. He picked up his phone and dialed Natalia's number. The ringing went on endlessly, agonizingly. Finally, she answered. "Natasha," he croaked. Silence hung in the receiver. "What do you want, Oleg?" Her voice was cold, distant. I wanted to say, I was wrong." The words came with difficulty. "You were always wrong," she replied, "but it doesn't matter now." "I understand," he said. I lost everything." "You lost it a long time ago," she said. "Goodbye, Oleg." She hung up. Oleg was left alone in his luxurious apartment, surrounded by expensive possessions, but utterly empty inside. He understood that he had truly lost everything. He had lost his family, his love, his trust. He had lost himself. And Natalia began a new life. Their apartment echoed with laughter and liveliness. Kirill and Lara did their homework at the kitchen table while Natalia prepared dinner. The apartment lacked lavish furniture and designer renovations, but it possessed something the previous luxurious apartment lacked: warmth and coziness. An atmosphere of love and mutual understanding prevailed. Children's drawings, photographs, and crafts adorned the walls. Memories, but not poisonous ones like Oleg's, but bright and joyful. Natalia looked at her children and felt a warmth spread through her heart. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but they would manage. They were together. She understood that true value wasn't money or possessions, but love and family. And that was something no one could take from her. Kirill approached her, putting his arms around her shoulders. "Mom, you're the best," he said. Natalia smiled. "And you two are the best," she replied. They sat together, embracing, and looked out the window. Outside it was growing dark, but their apartment was bright and warm, because love and hope for a better future lived there. Svetlana Artemovna called that evening. "How are you, dear?" she asked. "Everything's fine, Sveta," Natalia replied. "We'll manage." "I know you will," Svetlana Artemovna said. "You're a strong woman. I've always known that." "Thank you, Sveta," Natalia said. Thank you for your support. You're welcome, dear, Svetlana Artemovna replied. I'll always be here for you. Natalia hung up and smiled. She knew she had friends who would always support her, and that, too, was a valuable thing. She looked at her children, who were already falling asleep on the sofa. She covered them with a blanket and kissed each of their foreheads. Natalia turned off the light and lay down beside them. She felt tired, but happy. She drifted off to sleep and dreamed. She dreamed of standing on the summit of a mountain with vast expanses stretching out around her. She breathed in the fresh air and felt free. And she knew that this was her new life, a life free from humiliation and betrayal. A life filled with love and happiness. A life she deserved.